4 p.m. First item, roll call. Roll call of possible action on excused members of any absent member of the governing body.
Board Member Ed Wiley,
Here.
Board Member Jose Luengo, Board Member Leonardo Perez,
Here.
Board Member Raul Barreda, Board Member Manuel Cruz,
Here.
Board Member David De Los Santos,
Here.
Board Member Daniel Ramirez. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Quorum is established. Item 2A, introduction of members. I guess this is introduction of the board members. So for all who don't know me, my name's Ed Wiley. I'm the interim city manager for the city of Pharr.
Chief. Seniority.
Leonardo Perez, Fire Chief for the City of Pharr.
David De Los Santos, Hidalgo County EMS.
And Manuel Cruz, Director of Public Safety for Emergency Communications, 911.
My name is Daniel Ramirez. I'm the Director of Communications and Deputy Emergency Manager.
Alrighty, might as well stay there. 2B, status on cross-training of personnel. Danny?
Okay, board members, this is just some information on the agenda items that we have. We're currently training all our fire telecommunications personnel on the PD functions so that we have the ability to cross-train everybody. That's the goal ultimately. It's easier to train them into the PD side because there's less fire dispatchers than there is PD dispatchers. So we're currently about 50% complete. We're trying to make sure that they can take calls and assist as the system gets busier and busier, and as we're trying to add staff. That's the goal. Eventually, everybody will be cross-trained across the board in all 3 disciplines, but until we get there, we're in the process of training them.
Question. How long is your training program?
So it currently it can be up to a year. We're fast tracking it to 3 months, but it all depends on how fast they can take it.
That's all 3 disciplines for a year?
Oh no, for all 3 disciplines, it's probably you're probably talking close to a year and a half to 2 years for all 3 disciplines. I'm talking about just PD training according to the training protocols that we have now. So that includes all of. So as we add the new EMD, EPD, and EFD, we're changing the training protocol because now we'll have a set questioning versus what we have now, which is we ask the questions based on what we've done in the past. Yes, we have some questions, but it's not a set protocol. So it'll get faster as we get more proficient with using the new system.
So is this a standardized training?
Currently, it's a standardized training for the city of Pharr, not a system-wide training, but it is a standardized training that's still required for TCO certification, and so we're meeting and exceeding all of those standards. It's not just, it's not a standardized training that's used everywhere. It's
Well, I guess what I'm getting to is, if you hire a dispatcher, say from San Juan, and he's a PD dispatcher already certified, does that cut a year off the program?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's going to cut our training because they're going to be familiar with the TLETs. They're going to be familiar with 911, and now it's just learning, if you will, how we do it in Pharr.
Anybody else? Questions? Alrighty, thank you. 2C, status of moving fire dispatch.
Sorry.
Make sure to put your phones on silent. From Tyler to New World.
Okay, so this entails creating the fire call types into the new world and making sure that all the call types match up with the unit assignments created by fire department, the command staff. So we had a meeting with the fire department command staff on how they want to develop each call type, car accidents, structure fires, airplane, and then depending on how it actually comes in, what resources we dispatch. There's over 6,000 call types, and so we got to make sure that all of those are actually created correctly. We're about 75% complete on that, and the goal is hopefully by next month we're done because we want to push the EFD to go live on EFD next month. So that's what we're doing is we're working on making sure that all of that data matches up to what the fire department gave us.
Questions? 2D, status of emergency fire dispatch startup.
So on the startup, it plays hand in hand with the Tyler New World, but we had to wait on the interface. We had purchased the interface, but they had to make sure that that was done correctly between IT and New World. That is done now, and now it also makes sure that those pro QA call types they translate correctly into New World. So when we open up the call taking software, which is ProQA, we'll enter the call there, save it, and it automatically transfers to our CAD, which is New World. That also is 75% complete, and both C and D will be finished at the same time.
All right, questions? No? 2E, status of staff, on staffing, apologize.
So our staffing status, we currently have 7 openings in our communication center. We're minimum staffed. We're currently asking, we have an on-call list so that we can make sure that we have coverage. We do have one person who's finished, should be finished by the end of next week with all of her backgrounds, and hopefully we'll extend a job offer to her. And then we have 4 more that are in the background process. We've worked with the police department on streamlining the background process so that we can move through quickly and push them through that background process. Again, we still have TCLO regulations that we have to follow, and we're making sure that we keep to those. But it's about streamlining and try to get that background process quicker, because that's what takes a while.
What are you fully staffed, what number?
So on the floor, 20. So it's 5 per shift and 1 supervisor,
That's fully staffed,
fully staffed.
5 per shift and 1 supervisor.
So
you
it's
got 16.
24 total. And, I'm sorry?
There's how many shifts?
There's 4 shifts.
Oh,
There's 4 shifts. And so we're 7 short currently, so we are at
and 1 supervisor per shift.
per shift, yes, sir. So currently the supervisors are working the
24.
floor. Once we are fully staffed, then the supervisor's responsibility is to make sure they're doing their QA and auditing calls, and then assisting when it gets really busy.
So what's your minimum staffing?
Minimum staffing currently is 3 dispatch and 1 fire, 4,
Plus the supervisor?
plus the supervisor. Once we're fully staffed, minimum staffing is gonna be 4, including the supervisor. I'm sorry, right now, minimum staffing is 4, including the supervisor. So we have 4 people on duty all times right now. Once we're fully staffed, it'll stay at 4, but we'll use a supervisor to cover a shift versus calling somebody to come in overtime.
So the supervisor's actually covering the station then?
Currently, yes. Once we are fully staffed, they won't have to if somebody calls in.
Gotcha. Questions? All right, 7F, update on premise info.
So Premise Info is a program that Pharr Public Safety Communications, with the permission of the Lower Grande Valley Development Council 911, we're the first PSAP to implement Premise Info. And so what that does is we're able to tag a phone number, whether it's from a cell phone or a landline, and that phone number, when they call 911, specific information will come up, right? So we currently are using it at the parks, at our 911 call boxes. So when they call 911, when they push that button at the 911 call box, we automatically get information that it's, for example, Arnold Palmer Park, and the exact location of where that call box is. But it can be used for anything. So, for example, if we have a person that has a medical issue and they want to call and record their number with Premise Info, when they call 911 from that number, that information comes up automatically on the CAD. So home location descriptions, if it's a known subject to PD that they deal with quite a bit, and somebody calls 911 from that number, that information will come up and say, hey, that's a known person. And again, if they have any medical issues that they want to report, then that information comes up. And so we're the first PSAP that has established it, and we're hoping to push it on, and then we'll work with 911 for any other PSAPs that want to continue it.
Perfect.
Danny, is that similar to the frequent flyers of EMS, the software?
I'm not familiar with that software, but this is directly tied into the CAD. So if somebody, that person, whoever's registered with a phone number, would actually have to give permission to for us to be able to enter that information into CAD based on their phone number.
Yeah, my understanding was that that particular software, it was a particular individual, all his medical attention would come up again because he had already treated him once.
Right. So
It's almost the same concept.
It's almost the same thing, but again, they have to bring that information to us so that we can enter it in there.
Okay, but more generalized, right?
Right, and then we give that information to 911, and they put it in so that so if it's a cell phone and I enter information that I'm a diabetic, and then once all of the PSAPs in the Rio Grande Valley are using it, if I call 911 and another PSAP answers, that information is going to pop up on their PSAP. Because it's a cell phone, it'll pick up the nearest PSAP. So that's the goal, is ultimately to have it everywhere.
And so 2 questions. I'm sorry if anybody had any other questions. One, is there a cost to this?
No. Well, so it's part of the 911 system.
And 2, I guess there's no problems with HIPAA law or anything else?
So that
Or
information.
how much information you can put on there?
So that information is not available to the public. It's part of our 911 PSAP, and so it's not available unless you are a telecommunications officer. You have access to that, and so that goes back to CJIS rules, right? And so it's part. If you have access to those terminals, then you can't share any of the information. We've taken training on HIPAA. We've taken training on CJIS, and so that information is not shared with anybody.
All right. Any more questions? All right, 2G, update on social media communication.
So social media, what we've been doing is we're trying to send out real-time information. Now that we're in our comm center and we have access to a lot of the cameras in the city. So we have access to the city Facebook page, and we're sending out real information, which includes traffic accidents, fires, weather. And it's not limited to that, but we're trying to keep the public informed of when something's going on. So, especially with traffic, when we have a really bad accident on the interchange, and that way people can make arrangements to take a different route. Additionally, we're sending out public safety announcements, move over. It's a state law, but we're just trying to remind people that they need to move over, when to call 911, text to 911, and also information on Code Red, which is our mass notification system.
Questions? I got one. So we dispatch for other entities also.
Yes, sir.
And if they have a Facebook page or social media, are we putting stuff like that on their pages?
We are currently not, but that's the next step, is to ask them for access so that we can enter that information into their Facebook page, whether it's for the City of Penitas, Progreso, or Lensa Manuel Fire Department.
And as far like those bigger accidents that are, say, Lensa Manuel or whatever, we're not saying anything to the media?
Currently, no, but that's part of our plan to eventually is add all the agencies and have a plan to, okay, if it's in this area, this is who the people that we're contacting, so that we send out that information as soon as possible.
Okay. Questions? No? 2H, staff appointment to the Texas 911 Trainers Association.
I'm gonna have Kenneth Ennis, my Assistant Director of Communications, come up so he can give some information on that.
So question on this item, is this asking to appoint somebody, or you're telling me you're appointing
Oh,
somebody?
no, this
Somebody
is
was
just
appointed.
information that we're appointing somebody. It's, he's already been appointed, but we wanted to give you some information on it.
Okay.
Good afternoon. For the record, Kenneth Innes, Assistant Director of Communications. Recently, we went up to Dallas to attend the Texas 911 Trainers meeting. During that meeting, we were fortunate enough to be appointed as the Southern Region representative for training. So I'm responsible for 32 counties, pretty much from the west side to the east side, all the way down to the river, south of San Antonio. So what that entails for us is that we're pretty much setting the standards training-wise for the Southern Region, in coordinating with the rest of the other districts and regions within the state. What that does for us is it allows us to make sure that we maintain proper training within our region, and we also assist on core training throughout the state. So we kind of have a say-so on what the state pushes out as far as mandates for training hours, and so forth.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Questions for him? Before he leaves? Okay. 2I, consideration and action, if any, to approve emergency medical services call types requiring the response of the fire department.
So this is a list of medical calls that the fire department as a first responder organization responds to. I'm not sure if it was included, but I have copies.
Oh yeah, we'll go back. Excuse, my bad.
And although this is an older memo, we still wanted to include it as part of our agenda, because it's something that we're implementing it as a new public safety communications center. So these are the call types that the fire department for Pharr as a first responder organization will respond to automatically. This is not when EMS will request this. This is an automatic response based on the call type. And so if EMS needs us for any other call, all they gotta do is call the fire department and then we dispatch it. But I just wanted to make sure that this was part of the agenda and that we accepted it officially as part of our policy.
Make a motion to accept.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes. Motion for adjournment?
You wanna go to 1A?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Chief. I apologize. Go back to 1A and excuse the absent members.
Make a motion to excuse the absent members.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? People are excused. Thank you. Now motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Somebody make a motion so we can get out of here. Motion. Make a motion, second?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we're adjourned.
I'm trying to stay
Thank
here
you.
till 5.